All right, so welcome to Cornell Small Farms Program's webinar series for the Specialty Mushroom Project. My name is Steve Gabriel, and I'm coordinating this project along with a great team of folks. We do these webinars as just a way to share different information, connect the community, the larger fungi community, which includes growers and farmers and anyone that's interested in learning more. So we're glad to have you this afternoon, or if you're viewing the webinar recording at a different time. Just a couple resources and places to find out more about us. If you go to our small farm website, it's smallfarms.cornell.edu. There's a projects tab and you'll find the mushroom project under there. You can also go directly to cornellmushrooms.org and access our resources. When you get to the homepage, there's a bunch of stuff to read and check out, but you can also scroll down to find different pages for the different types of resources that we're offering. A lot of information about technical growing, how to find suppliers, how to connect to other folks in the larger community, and some kind of libraries of resources that we're working on to add to this. But our goal is really to help just get people growing, thinking about ways they can grow mushrooms, whether it's for markets or for their community. And our webinars, you'll find if you click on events, we have our webinar series right at the top of that page. We're talking about building community with fungi today. In June, we're going to have a share out with the POC fungi community. August, we'll do a recent book that came out, Mycotopia. We'll have the author with us to discuss that and his experience. In October, we're going to do one on mushroom production research from our program, as well as some other folks doing research in the field. And then in December, we're going to do one on mushrooms and art, which will be really fun. So if you're not signed up for those, you can find the link to sign up. It's just a free form, and we'll send you a reminder as well as the link to join the webinars each time we offer them. You can also find previous webinar recordings on this page, and we have links there for webinars that you can view on past topics that you might find of interest. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say hello to our lovely guests that we have. So we're going to hear from three folks and their experiences working with fungi and community and all the wonderful connections there. So we'll start with Amanda, we'll move to Aysha, and we'll end with Olga. So each is going to share for about half hour or so. And again, feel free to open up the chat panel if you have questions that come up, and we'll stop between each speaker, maybe take a question or two, and then we'll have a little time also at the end if we want to have some more conversation. All right, so I'll just ask for the recording's sake, if you don't mind, for the presentation, turning off your video for now and keeping your microphone muted, just so we can have a nice clear image of the screen. And Amanda, you can take it away. Let me give you sharing privileges.
Cool, thank you. Okay, cool. Well, so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Steve, to do a presentation about building community with fungi. So I'm going to introduce the project Mushroom Shed. There we go. So Mushroom Shed is a community project, and it's an experiential learning and resource space for all ages. And we basically focus on beginner mushroom cultivation through virtual programming, which is new from COVID. So basically, once COVID happened, we realized we needed to engage community in more of an accessible way where they could do things at home. And then we also have in-person community mushroom education, which we do on site at the Mushroom Shed physical location, which is in New Paltz on Huguenot Street in New York. And so the project basically started as my graduate thesis in sculpture at SUNY New Paltz. And I was driven by this question: when does something become a waste material? So it was also driven by that question, and also it was I was interested in projects that would unfold over long periods of time that were directly linked to community. And they would develop with the community and those involved in the project for like a long period of time. And so this project in particular is by Bonnie Orshirk. It's called The Farm. And it was a 6-year project where the artist worked with community to transform this, this like basically unfarmable plot of land underneath a busy highway in San Francisco. And so they created this like giant thriving farm that was so exciting and so inspiring to me that the community was just coming together, and really they were growing food, and there was like so many things happening on the farm. There was like there was plays, there was music. It was just this like really, it seemed like such a fun experience for community. So, and there was a lot of like art and ecology workshops that would happen. And so within this, there was a lot of material exploration. So that coupled with the community aspect was basically the impetus to the Mushroom Shed project as my graduate thesis. So I started going out into the community and specifically to local businesses to collect their food waste that was left over. So I wanted to see what I could find. So I was finding a lot of coffee and a lot of beer grains from the local brewery. And so basically there was like the biggest problem between all of them was that they didn't really have a more like an accessible way to compost their materials. And so at the same time, I was becoming really interested in mushroom cultivation. And so I got a scholarship through my graduate program to attend Catskill Fungi's, this is John Mycology here, who runs Catskill Fungi, their workshop for, I think it was called Friends of Fungi, which is, it was like a whole weekend at Menla Retreat Center where you learned how to like cultivate mushrooms outdoors. And then we did a little bit of like container mushroom cultivation. We made tinctures, we did tons of stuff, and it was an amazing experience because it not only helped me gain, you know, some skills in how to cultivate mushrooms, but it also really gave me an insight into like what the mushroom community is like and how supportive everyone is. And that really inspired me throughout the project. And I'm, you know, still friends with most of the people that I met in this about 3 years ago. So as soon as I left the workshop, I went, you know, I went home and I emailed the biology department on campus. And I said, you know, I found this mycologist, his name is Han Ho, pictured here. And he's a biology teacher with a strong interest in mycology. And I emailed him and said, hey, I want to learn how to grow mushrooms on these waste materials that I'm finding. And he's like, apparently no one in his classes was interested in mushrooms at all. So he was very excited that I was, and I was surprised, but he gave me access to the lab for a whole year. And I was his apprentice for a whole year, and he taught me how to clone mushrooms, and we grew out mycelium for reishi and oyster mushrooms. And he taught me how to grow out spawn on the waste materials that I was finding. And then so I was growing mushrooms, and this was so exciting. And I couldn't believe that these materials that I had found were just like so directly linked to my interest in mushrooms, and that I could basically grow food on the waste materials, and then it could be healthy soil. It felt like such an amazing experience. And so I would go back to I went back to the businesses. So this is Eric from the coffee shop and Kyle from the brewery. And I told them, I was like, I'm growing mushrooms on your waste materials. And we started to think about, okay, like, could there be a way that we can basically create a community recycling center where we grow mushrooms on the waste materials, and then but at the same time we're cultivating community, and then we're, you know, creating healthy soil. So to create like kind of this like closed loop system within the community. And so, very long story short, I started meeting with the food bank, who connected me to the Reformed Church of New Paltz, and I would meet with 2 members of the church there, and who are still very involved in the project. And we created an idea to pitch to the town for a structure. And so the structure is, this is the New Paltz Reformed Church's community garden, and it's on Huguenot Street, which is, in a pretty like high traffic area in New Paltz. And basically we ended up, this community garden is for free food for the community, and for people, it's like a learning center for the community. And so it felt like the mushroom shed was an amazing like an addition to what we could do here. So there was a lot of red tape around the fact that this was a historical street. So they needed the structure to tie in aesthetically to the village there. And so this was an amazing part of it, because it was like, okay, so now we can like really think about how could we integrate this, the look of it, how could we use art and the concept of history and all these things to kind of create this this structure. And so on the left here is a community smokehouse that was built in the 1700s. I think it's been, updated or, readjusted at some point. But I had gone on all these tours of the historical street, and no one had ever said anything about this structure. And it was so mysterious to me because it was like in the back and no one was saying anything. And so finally I asked the farm guy, I'm like, the tour guide, I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, that's a community smokehouse where people used to smoke their meats together. And so we were like, oh, that's what it should be. So we actually modeled the, we modeled the mushroom shed after the community smokehouse. And we even used, this is all bricks donated from the Historical Society that we used on the shed. And then I was basically at public hearings pitching, this concept of the project, drawings of what it will look like and things like that. And so this was like a group effort from everybody involved. There was many different partnerships involved in making this happen. And so at the public hearing, they said, you can't pitch it as permanent and you can't pitch it as temporary. So we pitched it as a 10-year project, and they passed it. I think that the mushroom shed structure is definitely permanent, but that's how we got it to be approved. So then there was like a lot of, hoops to jump through for the building department. And so finally we had gotten approved. So this was March of 2019, where we were approved to start building the shed. And so, yeah, we were approved March 5th. And then we started digging holes. So this was so many people from the community, like people from the Menla retreat with Catskill Fungi were a part of this. Many people within the mushroom community and outside of the mushroom community were, we were all just so excited to see this happen within the community. So we started building the foundation, and then all of a sudden walls were going up. And this was, the very beginning stages of our, we started realizing that we were creating like an internal group of the mushroom shed that was kind of pushing the project forward. And many of the people are still involved as our like internal group that are pushing it forward. And then we basically, because this was my thesis project, we had to, we basically had to show this as a thesis. And so we thought, what better way to show community than to have a mushroom festival? So we had a mushroom festival, and we actually live streamed the mushroom festival into the museum. So people could actually listen to the demonstrations that were happening, learn how to cultivate mushrooms. Like it was like almost like a how-to video that ended up happening. And there was like many interviews that would happen that people could listen into. And there was also a map that led people from the museum to all the different partners of the project. So people got to follow the map to stop at the coffee shop and get some mushroom coffee. to Bacchus, the brewery, to get a mushroom beer. And then it just highlighted every single partner in the project. And then people ended up at the shed. And so then there's this like big community day where we had mushrooms for eating. We had mushroom identification. We even had mushroom yoga. We had lots of different things going on throughout the day. In-person live mushroom cultivation. It was so much fun, and it really started to show how everybody involved. It was like the perfect way to bring everyone together. And so from there, that's when everything kind of got released into the real world. And it was we developed, a stronger partnership with Historic Huguenot Street and the Reformed Church of New Paltz, and we got a fiscal sponsor, which is the New Paltz Community Foundation. And that was around the time where a partnership with Sugar Shack Mushrooms, my good friend Elisa Javits, who runs it, we developed a partnership together to run the mushroom shed. And what's so unique about it is also that everything we do at the shed is pretty linked to Sugar Shack. So we actually make all the spawn at Sugar Shack, and all of the spawn that we make at Sugar Shack is used in our educational programming. So we wanted to keep the momentum going after that. After the festival, like there were so many people who wanted to be involved. So we thought, what better way to do it than to have monthly mushroom shed gatherings. So this was every second Tuesday of the month. And we basically had these workshops where we would teach about soil. This was one with Korean natural farming. So we actually taught people how to make healthy soil. We had some biochar workshop. And then we also had a soil input workshop where people could learn how to take their waste materials and basically turn them into helping create healthier soil. And this all led into a mushroom cultivation 101 course that we held for the community. So this was about probably like a 6-month course that we took people through, and we taught people like, what are mushrooms? What can you do with waste materials to create your own mushrooms? And it was all intended to basically give them an experience of like what it's like to, mushroom cultivation 101 that would lead to us together as a community building the community mushroom garden at the shed. And so we did this, this is at Sugar Shack Farm. So this was one of the workshops that we did. And we held lectures. There was like all sorts of presentations and hands-on demonstrations and inoculation workshops. And so it was really fun. We had about up to like 50 people at every workshop, and we totally were not expecting it. And so we were kind of just like moving and grooving as fast as we could to try and like keep up with the momentum. And then COVID happened. And so we realized, okay, we want to still keep this momentum going, but we realized that we can't have these big events anymore. So we decided to still host the community events to move the mushroom shed garden along, but at the same time, they would have to be in small groups. So our first one to move the mushroom garden along was Shiitake Workshop. So we did two small groups within a day. And so there were about, I think, 6 people to each group. And that was successful when we did it. And then throughout the summer and into the fall, we did some more workshops where it was small groups again, we did a bunch of piles of straw with oyster inoculation. And this is some photos that from some of the workshops of some low-tech methods that we use at the shed to, because we don't really have access to power or anything. So we do a lot of low-tech cultivation methods. And so this was where we inoculated buckets with oyster mushroom spawn. And this was in the winter. So we created a cold frame for the mushroom garden so that we wanted to see if this like cold weather strain of blue oyster mushrooms would fruit. Nothing has happened, but it could have been a number of factors. We actually inoculated like alpaca wool and sawdust, and that might not have been the smartest thing, but we're hopeful that maybe something will fruit out. And, you know, it was a great experiment for the time. And then of course there's the inside of the shed. So there's like many factors that we were trying to move along all at the same time. And COVID actually helped us, you know, gather ourselves again and be like, okay, what's important? What are we doing? Because the plan for the inside of the shed originally was to actually grow mushrooms inside of there. And so we realized very quickly, like, not a great idea. And the outdoor cultivation is probably best. So we thought, okay, what could happen on the inside of the shed? So this is what it looks like right now. But we decided that, you know, the community actually needs access to a lot of these tools. So we thought, okay, what if we create a tool library? So our plan over the summer is to cultivate this tool library. So it's going to have books and mushroom inoculation equipment that people could actually take out like a library. And we'll also have like experiments that we're doing, different soil samples, different things people can, you know, do with mushrooms that would be inspiring for them. And everything will be mirrored on our website. And so this is part of the community mushroom garden, but you'll see here, there's this big 6 foot by 6 foot window, and directly across from that is like the highest wall. And we're keeping that wall cleared because we want to use that as a art installation wall. So basically the shed is going to have to stay closed off to the public because it's going to have tools in there. And we realize we have to kind of keep it locked. But we have this really unique experience because this window can create a diorama for people to see this art installation that could be lit up and seen from the rail trail, which is like right, you can't see it from here, but it's like viewable from the rail trail. And that people can basically learn about different things that they could do with fungi through the art installation, and that will be mirrored on our website as like a resource so people can find other ways that they can learn how to cultivate mushrooms and things like that, all connected to the community mushroom garden and the installation that will take place in the shed. And so, you know, as I mentioned, we started this virtual programming during COVID, and one of the like what happened during COVID is we realized, okay, it's been so great to you know, have like tons of people get really excited and come to our events and to create this community together, and we want to keep that going. But we also, at deep inside our hearts, really wanted to connect with youth and make everything we were doing more accessible, because a lot of what we were doing was like you had to be in New Paltz, and like you had to have a car because you had to drive to New Paltz if you didn't live there. And we wanted to make this all more accessible. So one of the things that we did was, as we were creating this virtual programming, we started a partnership with a farm called Poughkeepsie Farm Project. It's a farm in Poughkeepsie, New York. And we created these kits for their, we started with their Green Jobs internship program. So that is a program that they have that is for youth. I think it's about 16 to 25-year-olds who want to learn how they can learn how to farm and then make that a viable career. So they did not have a mushroom section of the course, and so we basically hooked them up with these kits that came with everything they needed to create to cultivate mushrooms in a bucket. So we used cardboard and coffee grounds, oyster mushroom spawn, and we gave them alcohol, we gave them tape, paper towels, everything that they needed. That also came with a how-to video and a PDF for, you know, what to do after, and also recipes of how to cook with the mushrooms and everything that they needed to know. And then for the Poughkeepsie Farm Project, we also made small container kits. So these kits, we actually just delivered this a couple days ago. And this was for their workforce development program. So basically, they have a program where they provide recipe kits to people through their subsidized CSA program. And so the subsidized CSA program actually has like how-to videos that they utilize. They even do like in-person Zoom with them to help them learn how to utilize what's in their recipe kits. So we jumped in to help with the mushroom aspect of that, and we provided these kits for people to learn on a smaller scale. The bucket is a little bit intimidating for someone who might not have ever had anything to do with mushrooms before. So we wanted to make sure we had two different options. And so that's kind of where we're at literally right now. And it's really exciting, but what has fungi taught me about community? And so I think basically what fungi has taught me about community is that the mushroom life cycle is a great model for community engagement and collaboration if you follow the life cycle of the mushroom. So if you start with the substrate, for those, some of you might know what substrate is, but I'll just briefly talk about how it's the nutrients or food that basically allows the mushrooms to grow. And so in order for the mushrooms or the roots mycelium to begin to run through the substrate, it needs the right temperature, it needs the right nutrients, the right moisture levels, all for it to thrive. And so in community building, as we're seeing with the mushroom shed, the conditions of location and social climate kind of have the same requirements. And there's places within every community that can be considered the substrates: a library, a town hall, a school, a church, a farm, and they all really provide the right conditions for community projects to grow. And then there's spores. So spores, that fall, they're like the mushroom seeds that fall from the underside of the mushroom cap, eventually landing somewhere where they can germinate and begin to extend their roots to get some nutrients. But in collaborative community work, the spores are the individual people who align with the initiatives to carry and shape it to fruition to make change in a community. And then there's the hyphae. So those are the long white filament strands that kind of stretch and reach in search of nutrients out from the spore. And the hyphae act as the connecting strands to other spores, and they increase capacity for nutrient exchange. And so in collaborative community-based work, the hyphae are the partnerships that basically develop between individuals. And it's the strength of the connections between the individuals that determine the vitality of the organism. And to me, I think that's the most important part. And it's something that I personally put a lot of a thought into, is that, our internal group structure, the communication, whenever you're collaborating with someone, you're like bringing up their stuff, you're like triggering them. It's like, it can get really complicated and messy. So I think it's really important for that stage to develop communication styles, to create, systems that help keep people, safe so they feel safe to sort of speak what they need to speak. And because that could really become detrimental down the line if it's not really addressed in the beginning. And then the hyphae, the strength of the hyphae also goes into the mycelium, which is the, beginning state, which is all the hyphae that have fused together to create mycelium. And that's how the mushrooms can grow. So the strength of the mycelium really depends on hyphae and the availability of nutrients. So it's all like a big cycle. And the mycelium is a metaphor for the community network. So the strength and longevity of a community is really dependent on the health of the connections between those involved and who they're reaching. And then we end up the mushrooms. So that's the fruiting body that we see form above ground. And that is the community outcome. So for us at the Mushroom Shed, for example, that was like the mushroom festival. That's, the handing off the kits to Poughkeepsie Farm Project. It was all that underground work that we had to do to really get the mushroom to fruit. And by paying attention to all of these different stages, I've really learned a lot about community. And I think that the mushroom really gives us something to look at to help us understand community better. And so I'll end with upcoming events. So we're having a flash kit sale on the end of May, and that's really exciting. It's the first time we've ever done this, and this will be a sliding scale. So our intention is to basically offer these kits at sliding scale that people would pre-order, that has everything they need to grow mushrooms at home. And the kits themselves will fund future youth programming. So we want to continue as a program to provide these kits to local farms and local youth, where we can continue to spread the mushroom education. So if you are interested in learning more about that, you could follow us on Instagram. We'll post more about when exactly the sale is. And we're calling it a flash kit sale because it's like kind of limited, the amount of kits that we will have. So it'll be like a flash. And then we have a community work day, which will come in, we're doing that in June or early July. And we're planning to utilize the spent blocks from Sugar Shack mushrooms and bury the spent mushroom blocks as a trail from the mushroom shed to the rail trail, so that it like fruits mushrooms and attracts people to come over to the shed. So if you're interested in getting involved, you can follow us on Instagram at Mushroom Shed. And then, or you can email us at communitymushroomshed@gmail.com. And yeah, whatever you're interested in, or if you just want to be in the know of things we have going on, you can find us there. And thank you so much. I'm going to stop share.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
I love the life cycle narrative of the community influence on the mushrooms. That's awesome. If there's any quick questions, I encourage you to enter them in the chat about this wonderful project. Lots of inspiration, exciting things for me to think about with that. So thanks for sharing. And we're going to queue up Aysha to share next. So I'm going to make you co-host. You should be able to share your screen.
All right, here we go. Every time I've talked, I know Amanda from previous teaching experiences, and every time I hear her and build on what she's presented before, I just get like tingles because it's so inspiring. So just wanted to make sure I said that.
Oh, that's really nice. You're all going to be very inspired by this as well.
All right, so hopefully you all can see my screen. I'm trying to put it in full view. Can everybody see that? Okay. Again, really happy to be here, and what an amazing intro in terms of Amanda's presentation. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about my initiative called the Falaha Center for Spiritual Agriculture. I'm based in Orange County in the town of Chester, which has a great agricultural heritage, although a budding mushroom heritage, and I hope to be part of that initial group, and finding my way, through the community and making those connections. So I'm just going to share this quote, and Steve and Amanda know that I'm a big quote person, but it's inspiration for me, and I wanted to just connect you all with it, because it's become sort of a theme of my farm and mushroom journey. And I'll just read it out. Bucky Fuller is just amazing if you're not familiar with his work. You can rest assured that if you devote your time and attention to the highest advantage of others, the universe will support you always and only in the nick of time. And this has never been more true in any other work that I've done than in what I'm about to talk to you about. So where did it start for me? Well, it started with finding out about my identity. This is a very recent journey for me, just in the past 5-6 years. To start with, professionally, so mushrooms are more of a side gig for me, a passion, but they're not my full-time job. They're not how I earn a living yet, but I'm a communicator by trade. I work for Edelman, which is a public relations company. I'm also a writer. And I've had work published in the Cornell Small Farms program, the newsletter. I've had work published in Fast Company. I have a new column. I've been published in Dirt, and I actually have a new column coming out called Cultivator. So keep an eye out for that. Dirt is the local Hudson Valley food and farming magazine. And I also, and I'm so happy that Shafali, who's one of the participants here, she and I actually met at Stone Barns when she was an apprentice and I was living in Westchester and volunteering there. And I kind of got my roots, if you will, as a grower when I was in Westchester with the community garden there. I also trained in permaculture and biodynamics. And that was really in permaculture where I first started getting my hands into growing mushrooms, but didn't really know, what I was going to do with it. But what connects all these things is that I'm a Muslim. And so for a lot of it, it was kind of putting all these three things together. And also sort of taking that side of me and putting my guiding principles behind it in terms of, so again, more quotes, but how I observe. And that really came into to bear when I first acquired my land, which I'll talk a little bit about. Cultivating beauty, which is really important to me. I'm an artist. This is part of what I do. And then the role of money in all of this. Where does that actually play, into this? So just to give you a sense of the foundation. So I had an opportunity in 2016 to buy a piece of land. This was part of my dream, my journey. And it's a 3.5 acre former biodynamic dairy farm. But 1.5 acres of it is wooded. And that really started me sort of thinking about all that I learned about mushrooms and sort of looking at the land that I'm on. And again, that observation really came into play. It's not, cut down a bunch of stuff and, do this, but what is the land meant for? What will it do on its own, if you will? It's because it's a former biodynamic dairy farm, it has great soil. There's a house here. This is where I live. There's electricity, there's well water. So all of these things were part of my evaluation in terms of what am I going to do? What does it want me to do now that I'm here on this land? And so the inspiration for me became this word in Arabic, which is falaha. It became the intersection between my faith and farming. And just to give you, a little sense of what that word means, when I dug deeper, into this notion, falaha actually means to split in Arabic. These root words, they have tripart and multiple meanings. It means a couple of things. It means to cleave, to split, to work, to make, to cultivate, but it also means to prosper and to thrive and be happy and successful. And so in this one word, I found this intersection, this connection between my faith and farming. And so I also found, I'll diverge a little bit, from mushrooms, just to give you a sense of like how rich that history is, which has really been part of my journey in terms of making those connections just in different parts of myself, but also then extending that out to the community. And part of that is the Muslim community, which is not really familiar at all with growing mushrooms. So it's a very new thing in the culture and the world that I come from. I was actually able to find that, a lot of this deep well of knowledge in Islamic agriculture that, went all the way back. There were books that were published that organized all of this information, like chapters dealing with agronomy and cattle and poultry raising. I have to do more digging to see what they knew about mushrooms. Beekeeping, I mean, tons and tons of 585, different kinds of plants, 50 fruit trees. I mean, the depth of knowledge was absolutely incredible. I mean, they even had calendars that told you, kind of like the biodynamic calendar, like what to plant at what time of year and what energy it has. And I just started getting all these flavors of things I was already learning in biodynamics. And it all felt very connected in terms of this what I was, coming up to. And so that was really the inspiration for the Falaha Center for Spiritual Agriculture. And our mission is very simple. It's to grow faith, family, and fun through farming. And we bring that to life through a couple of different core principles. One is community outreach, and mushrooms play a big part in that. And it's providing youth mentorship to various religious organizations, youth groups, et cetera, and also donating fresh food to those in need, because food justice is a very important part of the mission. Local nutritious food, is not a privilege, it's a right. And that's a big part of what we do. Also agriculture education and really exploring nature's gifts, food, fragrance, fungi, pharmacy, fiber, through hands-on workshops. And then also land stewardship, respectfully, caring for and cultivating the land through conservation-oriented actions. And just to give you a sense of, the bounty that's here, we grow beautiful, nutritious food while respecting the land and the animals that we receive it from. We then donate a portion of that land, of that food, to local communities in need. And in our first full year, 2019, we donated 300 pounds of food from just 250 bed feet. And last year, when it was needed more than ever, we almost tripled that to 850 pounds and also 40 dozen eggs. And we also provide educational workshops. You see a lot of people working on mushrooms here. I'll just give you sort of a roundabout tour. So the first one in the upper left, this was actually during the pandemic, or just before the pandemic, actually. That's why nobody's wearing masks, because it was like the last group of people that I was able to get together, I think February of last year. And I had a bunch of access to a bunch of logs, and just invited, a few folks over who, through my social connections. The next one, I reached out to the mosque, and I, inquired, which of the youth group members would like to come and learn about, creating, shiitake mushroom logs. We've got some people doing biodynamics there. Up in the corner, the right-hand corner, we've got another workshop doing indoor cultivation methods. Even though we're outdoor, we're learning about all the substrates and the spawn and what goes into doing indoor cultivation. Again, we also have, in the lower right-hand corner, we've got some of the youth group members from the mosque, coming to do like real farm work and seeing what that's about. We built herb spirals, we do bombs and salves. And one of the best sort of connections that I was able to make through the mushrooms is when I had some folks over just doing a farm tour. One of them, she said, my daughter she's at a high school in New York City, and she's taking this gastronomy course. And I think that they'd love to learn about mushrooms. And they were blown away just looking at the logs. And so I was invited to teach about mushroom cultivation to this gastronomy class in New York City. And it was fantastic. I mean, again, just the opportunities that opened up, because they're just very unfamiliar to people, but they give you this amazing connection once people get it and they're excited about it because it's new and it's different. So I wanted to make sure that all this great work that I was excited about was actually self-sustaining. And that's where I sort of looked at this model with Falaha Farms. And so the whole notion is that this is a collection of interconnected farm micro-enterprises that support the mission. So if you think about the individual entity, the farm, that's composed of three things: the mushroom bolts, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We've got 100 bolts right now. I'm sort of looking to double that in the next couple of weeks, actually, with some trees coming down here on the farm. The gardens, as well as the chickens, which make up, each of those things produces what you might call a high value product, right? The mushrooms themselves, the eggs themselves, and the farm itself, produces experiences. These are all things that people they'll pay for, and they'll pay top dollar for them because they are high value, high quality products. And, also when I've had people come here, they look at the bolts, and I just had someone here, a neighbor's kid who, again, these connections, she's doing her final thesis at college on the relationship between farming and climate. And she came and just kind of walked around with me and asked me a bunch of questions and, what my perspective was on all of these things. But just when people see the bolts, when she looked at the bolts, she was like, I've never seen anything like this before. She was blown away. So when people see mushrooms on the logs, like there's value in the viewing, right? There's not just the acquisition, but people like looking at them. It's beautiful. And that goes into the experiences when people come here. You know, they like picking up the chicken, they like taking a picture with the chicken, they like buying the eggs. So all of those kind of fold into the experience of being on the farm, which again, people will pay for. So there is value and there's profit in this. And that profit is what goes into then making everything that I talked about in terms of the mission of the Falaha Center, you know, from forest stand management to food pantry donations to youth programming, you know, additional infrastructure is needed to make sure that these experiences and these activities of the Falaha Center's mission can continue. And so where mushrooms have played into that, again, just the bounty, and I just wanted to share this. We mainly focus on shiitake here, but are also experimenting with wine cap and a little bit of oyster. But you know, my first love, I think you should grow what you love, is shiitake, and it's become, you know, sort of my niche, if you will. But it also the fact that I come at it from a spiritual aspect, you know, that's people are looking for something different. They're looking for a unique point of view. And like, you know, Amanda's story, again, it's this very sort of unique perspective in terms of using that history and leveraging that. And so for me, this has become part of the identity that I bring and something that I can add, you know, to a place like Chester, which has, like I said, great agricultural heritage, but not so much in the mushrooms. And so that's where I'm sort of bringing that value and bringing that knowledge and information to share with the community here and extending that out. Just to give you a sense of the production model that I'm working with, I, you know, based on the sort of last year's research that I did, you know, just in terms of the bolts that I had, you know, my average yield is around, you know, 3.3 pounds per bolt per soak. And basically when I say soak, I mean, when you force fruit it, this is not just, you know, like now in spring, we've had a lot of rain, you know, so this is very, you know, purposeful fruiting or forced fruiting. And when I also was doing my research, I also realized in terms of the wholesale price versus retail price, you know, chefs will buy around 3 pounds a week and they'll pay $12 a pound. But if you're doing direct to customer, which again, I sell to a lot of my neighbors here, you know, people see the bolts, they're not far from the road, they attract attention. I have neighbors walking by who'll be like, oh, I love looking at your mushrooms. Do you sell them? Yes, in fact, I do. They'll pay top dollar. They'll pay $20 a pound. They'll buy them in quarter-pound packets. So this, you know, is my sort of like first full year after having sort of an experimental year zero last year to see what was really possible. And out of last year, I was able to glean 40 pounds of mushrooms. This year, I'm looking to double that number in terms of, you know, expanding, et cetera, in terms of what I can do this year and beyond. And I'm already making those connections with the restaurants. So I'm selling to Blooming Hill Farm, which is a local restaurant. We've got connections at other places. Again, the hood, you know, the neighborhood. We also have a milk club on the street. So the milk club, you know, members have become customers. The same thing goes, you know, with the eggs and the experiences as well, in terms of like cultivating this market, if you will, around which, again, the mushrooms become sort of an entry point because people sort of find themselves intrigued about this new thing. Oh, I didn't know you could grow them. Oh, let me talk to you about that. It becomes a way in for a much larger conversation. And what one of my pandemic projects was to launch the website. So you can find out more at falahacenter.org. I also put up, you know, any of the media or publications that I have there as well. Cultivator columns, you know, will be going there as well, from Dirt Magazine. So anytime if you want to visit, you can contact us, you know, through the site as well. So that was a big sort of mission to get that done last year. And, one of the most recent things that I did, because I was based in Westchester for so long, I had a lot of contacts with the Bionutrient Food Association, which, let me tell you, these people, I mean, if you're talking about, you know, mushrooms and food as medicine, like this, you could go on with this group because this is what they're all about. And they invited me to give a talk on mushrooms at the end of March. and that was at a farm in Westchester called Dig Farm. I made so many amazing connections through that, workshop. It was just 16 people, but the farm that I was on, little did I know, that farm owner also runs a podcast and a radio show, which is on Hudson River Radio. The podcast is called Getting Dirty. And so we actually just, like, I think it was last week or the week before, did a radio show all about mushrooms. So you can take a look on your podcast, look for Getting Dirty, and you can hear me wax on for about an hour talking about mushrooms. So again, the opportunities, because it's unique, because it's different, it's not something that people have really gotten much information about before, opens up this wide world of opportunities. And that's the amazing part of it to me, is that it's an entryway, right, into so many other things. And so really what I'm looking to do now with the center is, enhance the online presence, perhaps putting out quarterly newsletter, also networking through, local agricultural, conservation, and spiritual communities here in Orange County. And as I mentioned, the cultivator column in terms of local food, ag publications. I mentioned, scaling up. In terms of the number of bolts, I'm going to be doing a bunch of work parties here on the farm in May, just to get some help and get people, fun and back together. I think the pandemic really just sort of starved a lot of people for community and connection. And that's what, I'm really trying to do, is use the mushrooms to kind of bring people together in a way that they feel safe and also inspired. Look at the different varieties of mushrooms, and then also in terms of, perhaps, from a season extension perspective, start experimenting a little bit more with indoor mushroom growing blocks. So with that, I will wrap, and just, again, if you'd like to visit or have any questions, falahacenter.org for the Falaha Center for Spiritual Agriculture. So thanks again, Steve, for inviting me. This was a great opportunity. I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome, thanks so much. I'm curious, I'll encourage folks again, if you want to, any questions or just comments in the chat, that's a great way to do it. Curious, I have a question for both of you to answer while we do a little transition time. Wondering if there's one thing at the beginning, if you wish you'd known at the beginning of your sort of mushroom journey, that having some time with it now, you can appreciate and might pass on to someone who's a beginner.
What do you think, Amanda? Do you want to?
I would say, like, write everything down.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, and I kind of do that across the board. I like experiment with things and don't write things down, and then get it and it does well, but you don't remember how you did it. So I think that has been a huge thing that I've learned, that to always write things down, and because even like one little tweak that you did differently could really impact your outcome.
I 100% agree. Now I keep a book right near like my packing area. So like when I'm weighing, like I don't just keep things in my head, like, oh, I'll write it down later. Like that sort of is part, that documentation is like absolutely part of the process. But I think I would also say, one is don't be afraid to fail. Like if it doesn't work, it's okay at first. Like you're experimenting, in mushroom growing, we talk a lot about, this idea of, yes, learning. We cultivate works best, especially with outdoor cultivation. So be gentle with yourself if it doesn't like work, perfectly the first time. And yeah, I think that's ever, so in something, but be gentle and honest with yourself about the fact. Yeah,
I definitely second that.
Yes, mold happens as much as fungi happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
But sometimes things happen that you weren't expecting. Like Steve, I remember last time I saw you, I told you that I tried shiitake on straw in a bucket and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it fruited mushrooms. So it was really cool. So sometimes you don't know. It just sometimes things work.
Yep. I think that being open to the experimentation just as much as, being okay if it doesn't actually work, like, because you will find new things by doing that, and maybe it's a new or better way. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about all the time in terms of tree species, and even like, the duration during which you force fruit it, like your soak times, all of that is through scientific experimentation and then documentation. So we're just continuing that process. Yeah.
Yeah, we can all be citizen scientists and just,
Mhm.
I third the note taking is really important, because you think you're going to remember what you did, but you probably won't.
Nope. And it's helpful to just get it out of your head and not try to hold it all in there and try to remember.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you both. We're going to pass the mic one more time to our friend Olga, who's going to share a bit about community and fungi in the context of her fungi journey and the new Moon Mycology Gathering. So I think I've given you co-host access. Let me know if you have any issues, Olga. And you're muted if you're not aware of that, so we can't hear you yet.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Olga Zogas. I live in the Great Lakes bioregion up in Rochester, New York, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I'm going to put on my headphones. I'm actually here processing some herbs, some comfrey root here with some friends, and kind of doing a little herbal apprenticeship here in Ithaca. And I am just really excited to share with y'all kind of the the I guess the journey that I kind of took into going from like mushroom farming, which I still do, and obviously having like immense mushroom love, but definitely starting to take on roles of organizing larger events and things like that. So we will get right to it. I'm going to share this screen and it should work.
And to me, your audio is a little quieter now when you put your headset on. I don't know if it's
Okay.
the mic. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's great.
Let me up it and I'll make
Thanks.
sure to hold it. All right. Let's see. And then we will present. All right. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So, yeah, this is me during like a summer market that we do. And if people don't know, I run Smugtown Mushrooms, which is a mushroom farm and cultivation supplier out of upstate New York here and on traditional Haudenosaunee land. Um, I grow mushrooms, I make grow kits, I teach classes, we make medicine. All things fungi is on the table basically. Love doing markets, miss markets so much, miss gatherings so much. Um, and, I've been doing the mushroom growing for about like since 2012, 2013. Smugtown kind of became a real entity in 2014. And even before that, because we're all not just mushroom people, we're artists and, we have different loves and drives. And so before I was kind of, organizing art shows and doing rock and roll shows, and really got inspired as well to organize small like health fairs and things like that. So we're gonna kind of go forward. Yeah, so like this first little flyer here is actually one of the first health fairs that we organized. We called it Occupy Your Health. It was a free single day event where we contacted our local community who were willing to come and share their resources of whatever type of practicing that they're doing, like actual MDs to herbalists and physical therapists and things like that. So we kind of started, that kind of began kind of this like template of like, okay, what do we need to do to like gather a bunch of people to do amazing events, and what, and it kind of started there. And then, Smugtown as well would host events and workshops here in Rochester and in that general region. This is one of our old flyers from our first location in 2013, long ago. Oh dear, so long ago. But yeah, we would have walks and things like that. And in 2014, I think it was 2012, and yeah, 2014 and 2016, I attended the Radical Mycology Convergence. And in 2016, I was actually one of the organizers, and really just like fell in love with the concept of like bringing people together to teach and to educate versus like, a lot of times when we're, maybe in a like conventional setting, we're gathering and there's drinking and, partying, concerts and things like that, which is super cool. But, there's not as, I feel like that gets old after a while, I guess. And, I'm more into the educational programming than I am kind of like getting lifted so much. So after 2016, um, and 2017, because I was also helping organize the Mycosymbiotics Festival with Will Padilla Brown, we were like, you know, this is really great to like help other people do these mycology events, but there's something that we're still not getting from these events that we're doing. And and not just that, but the content that's being provided isn't really the content that we want to to always have. And we wanted to like spread out into different areas and different themes. And so myself with a handful of other people started the new Moon Mycology Summit in 2018, with the help of so many amazing people. And the first one that we had was in Wingdale, New York, on White Pine Community Farm, which is an amazing farm. And they do really great work as well. And there's actually some people on here that attended the New Moon Mycology Summit. And if Mary's still here, Mary helped tremendously get our food supplies. And I guess like something that I want to like bring up about all these events that that we're doing, specifically New Moon Mycology Summit and stuff with Smugtown, is that, it was always and always will be this concept of no one's turned away for lack of funds. It's sliding scale. We offer like kind of like, hey, if you could donate between $100 and $400, and no pressure if you can't donate anything, and no even pressure to volunteer, like come as you are. And that's something that we want to hold and encourage still. And everything is the New Moon Mycology Summit is a passion project for a lot of us. And you can see us here, we're like hand painting signs, everything is like a lot of like used materials. We're reaching out to our community to like help us, because really it's like we're really just holding a really big party for mushroom nerds and people that are trying to learn more and expand outside of maybe conventional agriculture, and like themes of science that like are really kind of stuck in an academic box that doesn't really talk about things like, okay, saving the environment, but what about saving the people too that live in the environment? And maybe not saving, that shouldn't be the word, but preserving their way of life and things like that. So yeah, these are scenes from the first year in 2018. Hand painted signs, beautiful art. this first picture here, this is Willoughby Ravelo, an author for the book DIY Mushroom Cultivation, which is an amazing book. Doing field ID and wild identification, at night underneath this light, identifying mushrooms. And then we got our cool little jazz band in the background. So it's like, at night, like things definitely shift and, but it's very enjoyable and we love it. And yeah, this is the flyer for our first year in Wingdale, New York. One thing that is really fun about like organizing these events is that you get to interact with artists and people that you've been admiring their work, and you get to include them into this process. And every year it's like a different person and different people kind of stepping up. And every year you bring on more folks that are really all about um, connecting and doing this collective work so we can all learn and share space and eat and have a great time. This is kind of where we are stemming a lot of our like sliding scale. Like, what does that mean? Because still, like, a lot of people don't really understand, like, what does it mean to pay what you can? And this is a really great model that we didn't come up with, but someone, Alexis, did. And we're really grateful because I think this is a really clear way to kind of like show people that, like, just because we're saying pay what you can doesn't mean that like you should just give us $10, even if you have like multiple houses and you got your own car and stuff like that. Like, we're asking people to like really offer what they can based on like what they really can. And it's a really cool model. You can look it up, green bottle diagram, and we have it on our website as well. And we love this model and really encourage other folks to do that. So another really great thing about the new Moon Mycology Summit, other than it being amazing and multi-day, and we have the sliding scale and it's really accessible, is that we also call in educators from all over, anywhere. Yes, we do invite certain people to come through, but we still open a platform up for people to send us applications, and they can get a chance to present. We try our best to compensate our presenters a basic flat rate, and based on what we're able to what we come up with at the door, we try to offer more and try to compensate. And we definitely prioritize paying travel and what BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color want for their payment if they are contributing, because we definitely want to prioritize folks. So that's, I feel like, is really like nice and unique about something that that New Moon has carried over the past couple of years. And another amazing component to what we do is that most of the food that, first of all, we offer 3 meals a day, which is, and that's included in the price, or just like as being a participant, is that you get fed by our amazing kitchen staff, which is a direct action kitchen crew called Seeds of Peace, who does kitchen crews during protests and pipeline blockades, and they come up and they cook for us amazing meals. And how they do that is with amazing and mostly donated foods from our bioregion and from beyond. And we also, we get amazing donations from corporate sponsors as well. I shouldn't even say sponsors, but I guess that's what they are. But we would get like Soy Delicious ice cream and Miyoko's vegan cheese, and so we do get like kind of like brand name kind of stuff as well for like amazing little treats. And but most of the food that we provide is like whole foods from amazing organic produce that comes from all over New York State and the Northeast and beyond. And Mary, if you're still here, Mary is a huge component for bringing a lot of our farmers together to donate food to us so we can be fed, and everyone is being nourished with amazing organic foods. And it's just this concept of like, oh, we're like having this, we get to stop, we get to share meals together and talk to folks and talk about classes, and it's a really great component for that. Another thing that's really sweet is that when we do the New Moon Mycology Summit, based on the location, certain needs have to be met where not every location is the same. Sometimes there's more infrastructure that that host provides. Other times, like we have to literally build all the infrastructure. And we do that by having volunteers or, people willing to come to our work party, our official work party, or even beforehand to build out compost toilets, to set up presentation areas, to set up signs, to clean the land, to prep the land for basically having hundreds of people. And that's really special. And we've had amazing turnout for even our work parties, and people are so generous with their time and with their funds and their skill sets. And that's, it's just like another component of like how amazing it is when we do the work to connect, that people really do step up. If there's if you build it, they will come type of thing. And like, I really do believe that. And um, another thing that we really are trying to make sure in our programming is that it's family friendly, and, not just like in the sense of like, you know, PG or whatever, but like in the sense that like there's support for parents with childcare. There's kids activities. There's stuff for everyone basically. So we're really proud to be able to offer more of that component in our mycology summit. And every year it just gets better and better. And Doa, who is an organizer, Doa Tekin, who's an organizer and also an amazing artist and so many things, she really spearheads the kids portion of it. Um, One thing that we were, and also pause me if y'all like have questions and stuff like that, but one thing that we realized that like, you know, we're focusing so much on this like bigger event that like there's this big space in between. And, obviously now there's even this bigger space because of Rona shutting things down and stuff. But we were kind of starting to, in 2019, we started doing these mycelial gatherings, which were kind of like pump up fest, if you will. They were like single day events that we were hosting, that we hosted a couple, one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and one in Richmond, Virginia. And these were single day events that basically kind of were almost like mini New Moon Mycology Summits. It was also, free or sliding scale, pay what you can, foods provided, multi components of workshops, hands-on walks, education, surrounding mycology, social justice, ecological justice, things like that. And so these mycelial gatherings were like kind of like pumping up, like, oh, these are like little mini structures, and come join us in this, like, later in the season for our multi-day event. And these were also ways for us to generate some seed money, so we didn't have to pull out of our own pockets to like get materials to do the summit later on in the year, which is a big deal, which is helpful for us because, passion projects are a whole other thing. So, and these are some of the flyers, once again, it's like these, ways to get creative and express ourselves in other ways besides just like we're mushroom farmers or, growers and things like that. So these are our flyers from the Philadelphia gathering, and the Philadelphia gathering was amazing. It was at Bartram's Garden. It was on the equinox weekend, spring equinox weekend, 80-degree day, hundreds of people showed up, and it was a complete success. And Virginia as well, multiple hundreds of people, really with, and we typically we're teaming up with people. So it's like we can't just like set something up in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. Like every time we're doing a summit or a gathering, we're always connecting with a host that's willing to step up and support us in a way that, we need, whether it's like hosting the site, running electric, getting us gravel for the driveway. I mean, it could be many components, and having a supportive host makes all the difference. And we're, so grateful for our hosts over the years. Here we have some photos from the 2018 gathering. This is Mario Ceballos, who's going to be speaking with y'all with the POC Fungi Collective. Mario came to the New Moon Summit the first year with his whole family. and spoke, for the first time, like, as someone interested in mycology, and we gave him this platform. And Mario went back to San Diego and created the POC Fungi Gathering, and now hosts events on his own with his community. And we are working together and sharing content and sharing space and supporting one another. And it's just that reverberation that, like, when we're all helping each other, we all do better. And this is their first logo that they had, the POC Fungi community. And in 2019, the new Moon Mycology Summit went upstream in the Hudson River, actually into the headwaters in the Adirondacks in Thurman, New York, on an incredible property hosted by Winnie and Gary, who were friends of the folks that actually helped us do a lot of the prep work for the first year in the 2018, and these elders that came through. And honestly, if these people didn't show up, we wouldn't have made it. So it's like these components where it's just like, if Andy and Lou LeBlanc didn't show up in 2018, like, New Moon 2018 would have, like, been a disaster. And then, not to mention, if they didn't show up, we would have never met them. And then we had our 2019 venue, which was a serious upgrade. And they were really hands-on hosts. And we just had a really 2019 was a really great year. And once again, working with different artists, and just making it fun. And this is our another 2019 poster that Gabby Schultz did for us. And just ways to get creative with the fungi. And yeah, this is the second location, the 2019 location up in Thurman. Beautiful banner right on the main, like, I shouldn't say main road, but a road where people are like, what's going on down there? And huge expansive property. This is us prepping compost toilets, because we hate porta potties. No one wants to ever go in a porta potty. And two, we really are trying to, like, teach people that, like, our waste stream doesn't just, like, disappear. None of our waste streams disappear. And these compost toilets, which were pretty basic designs, but Nancy Clem, who runs Social Ecologies and Spontaneous Vegetation in the Midwest, gave us this, template to make these dry, they're called dry toilets. It's basically, you're going in a bucket with sawdust, and that gets dumped into, like, a human manure pile. And there's a process, and then eventually, years later, that becomes composted and fed under fruit trees. And it's amazing. And this changes everything. And people might, like, scratch their head at first, like, how could this really work? But it does. And people are so grateful, and are like, this is so much better than, like, being in a gross porta potty. And because we're essentially on a lot of property, and there's not toilets everywhere, and we don't want everyone just squatting everywhere. So we build these amazing toilets. And here we have Bill setting up, like, basically these are, like, multi-seasonal compost toilets, like, really nice. And luckily the hosts were lumber, they're millers, so we had access to lumber. And these are the final products. And these are really cool little dry toilets where, like, with the curtains, and it's just like things stay dry and clean. And then there's, like, hands-free washing stations. Like, we were ready for COVID even there, but it's we still can't really gather like that. But here we have one of the several presentation areas with seating and PowerPoints and things like that underneath, like, a canopy. And then we would have, like, open air fields work and presentations in the field as well. Yeah, in 2019 we had, if not over 400 people. Our kitchen crew provided so well. This first picture is the line of people waiting to be fed. And it's just amazing. And, like, just one of the second photo is, like, one of the camping areas. And it's a really, we had the field, but there is, like, woods where you could have gone and camped underneath a hemlock tree if you wanted to. And just, like, really communal. Everyone's participating. Everyone's just, like, we're taking the break, we're eating our food, and then we're going back to classes. And it's really great. Another thing that we do at these summits is we try to have panels. The first year we had a water protectors panel, which had indigenous water protectors from the Hudson Valley and around the area, and earth firsters and different and lawyers who work with people, undergoing attacks by the state taking their land, or pipelines and things like that. And the second year we had a sacred plant and fungi decriminalization panel, and talking about like, what does it mean when we do start decriminalizing these these sacred plants or medicines, and like the process and like the ethics of it. And it was a super hit. I mean, people were really just, it was just such a really well done panel. And honestly, Mario really stepped up and nurtured that panel, and a lot of that component of bringing that conversation to our 2019 summit. Mario stepped up and really had a larger organizational role in 2019, and we're really grateful for him to be with us. And this is their new logo and graphic, super beautiful fungi, POC fungi community. And this is just like one of their flyers after a couple years after our event. This is what they were doing in San Diego last year before Corona hit. And they had vendors and teachers and just like free music, kind of basically a really similar platform that we were doing, which isn't, we didn't invent it. This platform isn't invented. It's just like, I guess like the commons and, mutual aid type of framework. And I don't want to use the word non-for-profit, because that is a whole other industry on itself, but essentially like something where it's not about the money. And we just do it because we love it. And it'd be cool if we do start getting paid, but it's not about that at the end of the day. So, and this is my beautiful dog Lucy. And I think I'm wrapping up a bit, and I'm happy to take any questions and talk more about this. But sorry about this. And yeah, this is me, Smugtown Mushrooms. If y'all want to find me online, Instagram or Facebook or the .com. And yeah, happy to talk more about what we do, and hope this gets you enticed to come join us one day at the summit, and to even start your own like mushroom gathering, because it just takes a few components and a lot of phone calls and emails. But yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Olga.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I had a hard time unmuting myself. Is there any thoughts for the future of New Moon at this point? Still an unknown?
Yeah, so we're not going to do it this year, because it's just like, there's still like all this, we don't really know what's going to be happening, and we don't want to put in a lot of work and then be like, oh, there's spikes in cases and we're going to cancel, and then all this work that we did is kind of like for nothing.
Yeah.
If you will. So we are just going to wait till 2022, and it will more than likely return to Thurman, New York. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
And there might be mycelial gatherings before that, but stay tuned and you'll find out. And the New Moon Mycology Summit has an Instagram page, by the way.
Awesome. Well, we are happy to hang for a bit and take